All footage in this video is from players around the community. Their links will be in the description of this video, as well as the music too. Before I start the video, I want to lend a major shout out to some PvP community members that helped fact check this and provide me with some nice clips. Thank you TyphoonTrav and Aston. Please go follow them. Their links will be in the description. Please go check them out, as this video wouldn't be possible without them. Anyways, here we go. This was the day that Destiny PvP changed everything. This was the Trials of Osiris, and it was special. In today's video, we will go over what Trials was, what made it special, players, metas, careers, community, and what ultimately led to its downfall. I want to sort of future-proof this video by saying that it may be back by the time you watch this, but this video as of right now will focus on the was and not the is. Many of you are excited to return to the Trials, while some of you have no clue what it was all about. So let's take a trip down memory lane and remember a different era of Destiny PvP, one that was exhilarating, tense, and at times incredibly frustrating. But it was unquestionably the peak of Destiny PvP, and for me personally, one of the most rewarding feelings of accomplishment this game has ever had to offer. Let's begin. As many of you know, I like to start these deep dives with context as to why the stage was so big for these events, Trials being no exception. The day was April 28th, 2015, and Bungie released this trailer for the brand new mode, one that players knew almost nothing about. The Trials of Osiris would be revealed on stream, assisted by a now legendary PvP player, TripleWreck, to show off what was in store. From the teaser, you already see this ancient Egyptian looking gear on these Guardians, and at the time brand new map, Burning Shrine, and what looks to be 3v3 gameplay, not 6v6. This had its own overview from the Bungie dev team, and during the reveal stream, all of the employees were rocking the bright golden eye, which would come to be the Eye of Osiris. We were shown a few things that would cement Trials forever. But before we jump into Trials, it's important to know the landscape of PvP to this point. In the expansion House of Wolves, a gigantic sandbox update happened, one that would make a major change to the Crucible. For starters, there was no real good reward system in PvP to this point. The only reason to jump into Crucible was to show off the loot you earned in PvE activities, test some of the new exotics, or just have some good old plain fashion fun. The player base for the most part liked how unique Destiny was with the ability to flash loot from one activity into another, but felt there was something missing. They weren't being rewarded the way that PvE endgame players were. The other difference in PvP to that point was the meta. Oh boy, do I feel dated by saying that Suros regime was the main weapon of choice for players with auto rifles shining. But I also can't not mention how broken this meta was either. You had the exotic Vex Mythic class, which was like this.
But this weapon's current state it's broken as hell. Especially after I was on the other side of this weapon when it was on the enemy teams and not mine. I fully anticipate a nerf coming to this absolute monster of a weapon, despite the fact that very few people in the game actually have it. It is way too strong in PvP, and I know that Bungie has said that exotics are supposed to feel a little overpowered, but that's it. Feel overpowered.
And the exotic Pocket Infinity that could do this. Yeah, let's just say those were tuned down a lot in update 1.1 for the Dark Below's release. The Dark Below would see the buff to the most infamous Trials weapon ever made, Thorn. Accompanying Thorn is the most infamous Old West looking pistol, the Last Word. Finally, for the PS4 players only, I'm a salty Xbox player, you had the RNG machine, Hawkmoon. All three of these weapons were at their peak for the beginning of Trials. Finally, this was the first time in Destiny to this point there would be a season without a raid, so this meant the new mode had to be huge. With all of that out of the way, it's time to talk about the Trials of Osiris. After the hype of the reveal stream and all the talk about an endgame for PvP players, what was this season like? Well, aside from the 3v3 PvE activity Prison of Elders to fill the place of the no raid for PvE players, there was something else that Trials was going to have to prepare for. With the release of House of Wolves, Banshee 44 would now allow Guardians to spend their hard-earned materials to re-roll House of Wolves weapons, so Guardians could go for their shot package final round and Hammerforge rifling Fellwinter's Lies, or Effort Eats Spear with final round, which made it so the final shot, no matter where you shot a player, would kill them guaranteed. That would make for some perfectly balanced gameplay, right? The day is Friday, May 22nd at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Zur was up for his morning coffee as usual around the reset, and there was something new in the directory, that yellow symbol with an eye. Every time you tried to click it, it would tell you you needed a passage of trial. So you went to Brother Vance on the reef, got your passage, and these little bonus consumables? Brother Vance offered us 3 different boons each week. One would give us a free win, one didn't count your first loss, and one counted your next game as 2 wins on your card. No pressure, right? You picked up your Trials card, applied your boons, and hopped into the battlefield praying that matchmaking would put you up against a stack of blueberries. This made Trials more accessible for the less hardcore PvP players to jump in with more confidence. Now that you have your card in hand, you can enter the Trials just like a Costco. Once if you get that one. Oh wait, I'm not allowed to go in solo? Yes, Trials of Osiris would make it so players needed a fire team of 3 to even search for a match. This made it so players would be forced to form a team, work out some strategies for team comp, and ultimately pass blame to somebody else on their team. Plus, it separated Trials as an endgame event, one which required at least some form of communication, and trust me, you were going to need it. So you found a match with your Thorn that would 2-tap enemies in hand and final round sniper. You were going to be victorious. You were going to be the first one to the new area that some had rumored about. You were going to be worthy of Osiris. Then Giggle Monster comes in with the hammers. TripleWreck 2-taps you. Poshy blade dances you until your ankles fall off. GernaderJake just blows you up. TyphoonTrav gives you the sauce in your eyes. RealKraftyy takes your lunch money and beats you with it. DrLupo teabags your corpse, and you have to buy another card. Then another card. Then another card. Then another card. Until you run into one of them again. So what was the big deal about completing a card anyway? And why were you running into these players? So the reward for players who would pass the Trial of Osiris would get the best reward I think possible for Destiny, a trip to a brand new planet. This was the first time players were introduced to the new planet on their directory, Mercury. We now think of Mercury as this place of Curse of Osiris and soon to be the Season of Dawn. But back then we were filled with mystery and curiosity. When you landed on this planet, you didn't just land, you got a cutscene of the sunset you were about to ride into. Then, a social space all to yourselves, cut off from everyone else in the game. Then, the most beautiful chest in Destiny's history with an eagle on the top, you opened it to an adept primary weapon, meaning it was kinetic weapon with either arc, solar, or void attached to it. This was especially great because the only adept weapons in the game were the ones from the raids and Prison of Elders. But what also made the Lighthouse trip special was the first, and to my knowledge only, exotic emblem, the Eye of Osiris. This emblem showed that you did the hardest thing in Destiny. You went flawless in Trials. PvP players would be taken back a little more, while PvE players would finally let you raid with them. The Lighthouse was mysterious because it was so small and walled off. Maybe for future content one day. There was even a secret crevice in the start area where a dead Vex body, a book, and a skeleton were seen there. Theories of Osiris's death or disappearance added to the epic scale of Trials. Speaking of epic scale, let's talk about how many Twitch streamers for Destiny got their foot in the door with Trials. It was safe to say that in 2015, Destiny dominated Twitch's top 10, hitting even #1 a lot during the high points of Trials. But why? Well, with the dominance of players like the ones we listed before and many others, players who were not as skilled could hang out in one of their streams and ask for assistance. This was free in some places and not so free in others. But the point was hit on the head by Bungie, that players should come together to celebrate this epic event that happened from Friday to reset every weekend. For me, the viewer, I would compare this to making a trip to Blockbuster for a Friday night movie. Pick a stream and watch it for the night to see some incredible plays for high stakes. Who wouldn't tune in when you have plays like these? As times went on, streamers became increasingly more creative, from doing 1v3 challenges, to sharing a controller, to even carrying their own parents to the Lighthouse.
He's so bad though. No, he's so bad. No! Yo, come to the middle. Yo, push in there, mom. Just aim down. What are you aiming at? Aim down, aim down, aim down, aim down. Right stick, right stick, right stick, right stick. Right there, pull R2. Yeah! Let's go!
Trials became the home of Destiny content creators. I could talk about the downside of this, with expensive paid services taking hold, to some people being scammed by websites, and DDoSing of players and streamers. But that just comes with the territory of something of this scale. Something this epic. We have talked about the weapon meta already a bit, but I want to stress how important it is to the popularity of Trials itself. So, when House of Wolves launched, everyone was using Thorn, Last Word, and Hawkmoon. Why? Thorn had the ability to 2-tap headshot anyone across the map. There was no healing rifts, no healing grenades, and only Red Death had some healing perks. So Thorn, with max range, was destroying players. Last Word was strong because of its perk, Last Word, which made it do bonus damage for hipfire, 111 to the head precision shot, 2-tap potential, and Hawkmoon could be great since it was based off of RNG, so if it were to hit an enemy on a headshot, it could kill them in 1 bullet, 2 bullets, or a guaranteed 3. All of these were busted, but that was actually a good thing? I leave that question for you. Do you think that grounding the best PvP meta to 3 primaries like this was a good thing for Trials because it balanced the mode and made primaries relevant? Or do you think it was wrong to have it so grounded? I'll leave that one to you. Anyways, players would be antsy to bust these weapons out on anyone at any site. I remember specifically watching some players put 6 shots and finish a round. That's how insane these weapons were at their peak. One thing that was definitely a part of Destiny 1 was not being able to know when the other team had a super up. So in Trials, when you would see that self-res Warlock on the other team, you'd get a little bit nervous because you never knew if they were just going to randomly revive at the end of a round, since they had the ability to when the round was about to end. And I cannot tell you for how many highs and lows this ability alone had to Trials. It was a major part of Trials all 3 years, and I definitely cannot stress how important it was to the Trials meta. But speaking of peaks in Destiny, let's continue. Many consider the Taken King to be the best time in Destiny, but why? Aside from the dramatic overhaul in the leveling system and added content, Taken King would see a dramatic sandbox shift, one in which those precious 3 hand cannons were gone and a new era of weapons would take shape. No Land Beyond, a sniper without a scope, allowed for high ceilings of play. Invective, a shotgun that would auto-reload the magazine, and the centerpiece of it all, Mida Multi-Tool received a buff along with all scout rifles, now letting it do some serious damage in Trials. But what also made every Trials player afraid? Bum bum. Bum bum. Bum 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 bum. It's a Hammer Titan. Yes, when this came out, the memes were rampant and players wanted this to not be nearly as strong. You could stay in your super forever and do tons of damage. Not to mention, sticky grenades were guaranteed one-stick kills, and with how easy they were to use and how you could stick someone with the Hammer Titan class, it became ridiculous to stop. Players were opting to run away instead of challenge the super, which is new for Destiny 1 players, but not so new for D2 players. This subclass had some funny moments too. Overall though, Trials was back in year 2. This time with a spice of new emblems, some new weapons, and a new seasonal variant including Halloween. But did anything really new get added here? No, actually if anything it took a step down? Well yes, you were able to reach the Lighthouse again. We got some new weapons and armor, which don't get me wrong, are great, but there was no adept variant on these weapons. With the Taken King, adept weapons were gone entirely. But at least we had some new stuff to collect and farm though. Streamers were still killing it on Trials, and many of the top streamers were now able to go full-time as a result of this event, making it truly special for content creators to show off their talents. After all, this was the perfect platform for streamers to showcase their skills and made for some of the most entertaining gameplay on all of Twitch. It single-handedly kept Destiny relevant and always near the top of games being streamed. Trials has now been out for a year and a half. Players are starting to get fatigued by the mode at this point. Don't get me wrong, we love the mode, but like I said previously, there wasn't as many reasons to get to the Lighthouse anymore, especially with the changes Rise of Iron made to the game. Special ammo was changed tremendously, not allowing the players to even start with any in the first round of Trials, which led to one of two things. One, players would opt to use sidearms since they were the only special weapons in the game to let you spawn in round 1 with special, or option 2, use the exotic Icebreaker, an exotic that literally regened ammo for you and of course was a sniper, so a one-shot headshot would always be on the table. This made a lot of players not want to play, and streamers were starting to not enjoy it as much. With players leaving the mode more and more because it's third iteration of a similar concept, this meant that the people who were left probably aren't your average Joes, so getting flawless also became harder. One more thing. Taken King introduced us to the artifact, an item that would boost your build for intellect, discipline, and strength. However, in Rise of Iron, the artifact gave you abilities based upon which one you had. Some of these were awesome, like Memory of Radagast, which made it so you could deflect Nova Bombs with your sword and play ping pong with another player, or Memory of Timur, which made it so enemies could fight on your side for 30 seconds when you melee them. One of these was not so good for Trials though, Memory of Scory.
Drag out those 2 minutes. And at the end of the 2 minutes, my 2 allies are going to be able to push the control point with 2 supers. Now, any of you who played Trials of Osiris will know that popping 2 supers pretty much guarantees you a very, very high chance of victory. And imagine if you could charge up supers every single round. Imagine if 2 people had supers every single round. This is absolutely game breaking because first of all, your super economy is completely broken, and second of all, you are going to encourage a playstyle that is incredibly passive, so people are not going to want to engage each other at all just so that they can charge up the supers for their allies.
This made it so if you were near other fire team members that had this artifact as well, your super would regen insanely fast. This made the camping with Icebreaker very strong and was starting to bother Trials players. Nonetheless though, this mode was always fun since, let's be real, it wasn't Lighthouse or bust for a lot of players. You were allowed 3 losses on your card, with the rewards at 5 wins being a piece of armor that weekly rotated and 7 wins having a gun that rotated. Sometimes, even though the dream of Flawless was over for you, you still wanted to see if you could manage to get a piece of gear you didn't have. Trials of Osiris by the end of 2017, however, was about to close in Destiny 1. August 11, 2017 was the day the curtain closed on Trials of Osiris. So many careers made, so many memories made. What was to come next? Destiny 2 has officially launched, and with the promise of it being a sequel, it will feature Trials of the Nine? Interesting. But nothing too bad, right? Well, from the beta gameplay of Destiny 2 and the changes that were to be made, yes, this was not received well at all. 3v3 gameplay? Nope. 4v4. New weapons with random rolls? Nope. No new weapons all year outside of the release, and no random rolls. Once you get the weapon, that was it. Elimination? Nope. A search and destroy / CSGO variant called Countdown, and a new mode that many players would describe as the I died one time and I'm out? Survival, where your team shared 6 lives and you could only be 1 death and still lose the round. Time to kill? A whole lot longer. Balance, right? Meta. Restricted to 2 primaries. Yay! To its credit, they did add a new space and a pretty cool visit to the emissary, getting us hyped about meeting the 9 with a new emblem as well. But this didn't have the same effect as D1 Trials did. It just became team shooting and slowly killing enemies for the exact same loot. Once you got it once, that was really it. And this coincided with the downfall of Destiny 2 Year 1 as a whole. The worst part for me is that nothing was really added onto the system of Trials. No new rewards at the end or even something to make it feel new. Just a watered down version of what came before it. Many streamers expressed concerns and lots of the top ones moved on to other avenues. I bet some of you watching were surprised when I showed clips of Lupo, Tfue, and Kraftyy even playing Destiny. But it truly did launch their careers, and after this true downfall of a once special mode, can you blame them for moving on? I don't mean to sound negative, but the community objectively agreed that it was bad for the game, and Bungie removed it August 24th, 2018 to completely revamp it. So you may be asking if my future proofing has worked. Where the heck has it gone? The last update we had gotten on Trials was Valentine's Day 2019, in which Bungie said, until we have a solid prototype for a pinnacle PvP endgame activity, Trials is staying on hiatus indefinitely and will not return over the course of the next few seasons. When we have those new plans ready, we'll be sure to share them with you. So Trials hasn't been back since Season 3, Warmind. And players were frustrated by this decision to not bring it back, but they understood since Bungie made a temporary focus on competitive Crucible with all the new pinnacles, like Mountaintop and Recluse. But why haven't they brought it back to this point now? It has been debated a lot, but here's my 2 cents on why it hasn't been brought, or hadn't been brought if you're in the future. The sandbox of Crucible right now is very, very bad. Mountaintop, Recluse, One-Eyed Mask, Handheld Supernova, skill-based matchmaking, and for some, not all, dedicated servers to prevent some of the harsh connection issues, plus a laundry list more. Not only that, but how can Bungie find a way to reinvent the wheel with it? It's very hard when the rewards were so mighty, and the system just worked for a lot of players. It's a frustrating process for both sides, and both sides want it to return in the best shape possible. So it would have to be perfect. This will lead into my final question for you. What would you do to change Trials for the better? Leave me a comment, please. I'll be reading through a bunch. Overall, Bungie and the player base want nothing more than to see the return of the king of PvP. And with the Season of Dawn right around the corner and Osiris on the cover, nothing sounds juicier. Maybe I'm romanticizing the Trials of Osiris. I mean, it had its problems and caused me more rage than I care to admit, but I still look back at it fondly. In fact, I still have friends to this day that I met through an LFG group from this activity. It was something special to have 3 Guardians fighting to reach the same goal. Being the last Guardian standing in a 4v4 tied game and getting that clutch kill was a high that hasn't been matched since. I know Trials will come back someday, and I hope to see all of you in the Lighthouse when it does.
warrior like yourself to ascend to the top of the rank cap.
Of course, and,
Yeah.
and there's people out there who don't like to raid, and there's people out there who don't like to play PvP, but now there's kind of paths for those different types of players to get to the top, get to that end game. So that's very exciting.